What are the country's top CEOs doing to build extraordinary teams and cultures who thrive even during a pandemic? You're about to take a deep dive into the minds of wildly successful C-suite leaders who are evolving the way that we work in the 21st century. Welcome to this special edition of How to Be Mesmerizing. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we are into our special series where I'm interviewing some of the world's most successful and best CEOs in the country who are really leading the change for creating happier, more mentally well, burnout-free spaces and workplace cultures so that we can be happy and we can grow as people while we're working. And I have another extraordinary CEO with us who is so people-centric and culture-oriented, who's done amazing things. Rob Dube is with us. Rob, welcome to the show.
Tim, it's a pleasure. And let me just say how grateful I am to you for taking time out of your day to spend with me. And it's humbling to be on a show that's had so many legends come through the internet waves, so you could have this podcast. And
Yes.
so I've, as I mentioned, such gratitude for you for your invite. And I'm happy to be speaking with you today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So you are the co-founder and co-CEO of ImageOne, which is an award-winning people-focused company, which I love that, a people-focused company. And I love your mission and your purpose to provide genuine care to everyone every day, every time. And I'm going to be asking you how you came up with that because I love it. So Rob's a mindful business leader. We're going to talk about what that is, and a daily meditator for over 15 years. So the dude's very zen. He knows what's going on. He has a best-selling book called DoNothing, the most rewarding leadership challenge you will ever take. And we're going to talk about that. And also the host of his own podcast, Leading with Genuine Care, which I listened to one of the episodes and really enjoyed it. And the Leading with Genuine Care Leadership Retreat, which they got a live one coming up in October, if you're interested. So, and of course you write for Forbes, and I could spend another, 2 hours talking about how awesome you are. So let's jump in. Yeah. So Rob, explain to everybody, what is a mindful business leader?
Well, I wish that was a simple answer. I suppose it's different for every person. But some things that come to my mind when I think about being mindful, it starts by recognizing that you're really just dealing with another human or humans. They're just like you. And so you're nothing special just because you're in a leadership role. We're the same. And the best leaders that I've seen, the most mindful leaders, have practiced, and I do mean that in a literal sense. It's a practice. They practice being fully present. And what it means to be fully present is listening without judgment or solving. And when you're with a team member or a group on your team or some extension of your business, whether it be your partners or stakeholders, they feel an energy from you. That presence, that full presence exudes from you, and they just know it. It's hard to describe it, but they just know it. And great leaders have a tendency to listen deeply. Great mindful leaders have a tendency to ask many curious questions and help those around them come up with the solutions, because great and mindful leaders know that those folks have the solutions. But most leaders want to just give you the solution. It makes them feel good, actually. They want to be wanted. They want to be needed. And that is a distinguishing factor between mindful leadership and leadership.
I love that answer. And it's really powerful, the idea that you can listen without trying to just solve everybody's problems. Because us leaders, we're type A, we're charging forward, we got a million things going on, we love momentum, we're going to make things happen, we're a little perfectionistic, right? And so we're like, all right, I'm going to solve this and do this, and hey, Ned, you're here, and you're on. We're just going to keep moving and charging forward. But your approach is, don't solve problems, empower people to solve their own and to be curious. How'd you come up with that?
Well, I don't know that I did, but it's something I've had the good fortune to witness through many people that I've come into contact in my life. People like Ari Weinsweg, who is the CEO of Zingerman's Community of Business in Ann Arbor, Michigan. People like Bo Burlingham, who wrote a book called Small Giants. And Bo went around the country and learned about leaders who cared for the totality of their team members' lives and had incredibly successful businesses at the same time. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
People like Jack Stack, who is the CEO of Springfield Holdings in Springfield, Missouri, and the creator of The Great Game of Business, where he taught and teaches financial literacy, open book management. It's an employee stock ownership plan. He has 600 employees and, multiple organizations there in Springfield, Missouri, one of the largest employers. And those are the sorts of people that I was able to glean just a little bit of wisdom from. And then those outside of the business community, those that are really wonderful listeners and who are incredibly mindful, people like Jack Kornfield and John Kabat-Zinn and Sharon Salzberg, who are pillars of the mindfulness community here in the West, in the States. And then, even beyond that, those beyond that. So those, I think that formula, when you mix it up in a pot, you really can come up with kind of the inspiration behind it.
Wow. I love it. I believe that, there's an old phrase that leaders are readers, right? We're always looking for new information, new ways to excel, constant and never ending improvement. So going through, in your own industry, with your own business, with your own network, but then looking outside your industry, connecting with other people that aren't in the business world, figuring out what their strengths are, what makes them powerful and present, and bringing that into your organization so that your culture is always growing. You're always evolving. If you ever get stagnant, then all of a sudden you're decaying instead of growing. And yeah,
That's right.
So what are some ways that you can become more mindful as a leader? Do you have some ideas for us?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned before, it takes practice. So, and I always say practice in the literal sense. I like to use a couple of examples, sports and music. Most have some connection to one of those. That's why I use them. So if you think of the highest level athletes, all they do is practice. They love practicing. They're the last ones, if it's basketball, they're the last ones in the gym shooting 3-pointers or free throws. Everyone else is gone. Yeah. And then the big game is on the line and the crowd's going nuts and they're all against you, but they don't even think of the crowd. They can't even hear the crowd. It could be 25,000 people all against you. And athletes time and time again say they don't even hear it. It's all drowned out and they sink the winning shot, no problem. Yeah. Musicians, very similar. You take a wonderful pianist or performer or singer, they work on those notes, a pianist until they have blisters on their fingers. And then the curtain goes up and there's thousands of people, could be, tens of thousands, and they hit every note flawlessly. You just don't walk on stage and become amazing. You practice. Right. And that's what I always like to reinforce with people about just becoming more mindful in general. And one tool that may be useful for some is to learn a mindfulness meditation practice where you sit and you pay attention to your breath and you allow your thoughts to flow through your mind without judgment. Without solving, very similar to when you're in front of somebody who has a challenge that they're presenting to you, and work on coming back to the present moment, that anchor, which is your breath. And that can be, for some, a useful tool to help them become more mindful in their relationships in their lives.
I like that. That's a good one. I remember a communication experience that I take people through, because when I'm working with companies, I'm just telling people stuff doesn't create any kind of change. Going through experiences where people have their own aha moments, their own, increased self-awareness, or when we're able to upgrade beliefs that they didn't know they had, those unconscious blind spots, that's where the transformations take place. And so we would do an exercise where I was going to say a sentence, and then you had to start the next sentence with the last letter of the last word that I said. Right. And so the last letter of the last word I said, SAID. So now I'd have to start with, dang, that's going to be, I'm really going to have to focus. And then, okay, S, and so we would go back, and people would just be so present because you're really paying attention, as opposed to what you said, somebody says something and now you're thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch, or how you had another experience, and, we're off somewhere else instead of here.
Yes.
So it's very good.
It's a wonderful exercise that you just mentioned, and you talk about, instead of, lunch and these other things that are, flying through our minds.
Yeah.
And, it's always good to try to remember that, the past is the past, and there's really nothing that you can do from it. You gain wisdom from it, and that's with you right now. So there's no need ruminating on that. And the future is the future. We want to control it, but we know we can't, or at least it's worth considering that we can't. So all we really have is this one precious moment at this time. Tim, you and me right now at this moment. There's nothing else that I'd rather be doing than spending this moment with you. And I'm here with you, fully present, and it's to be cherished.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, come on. Someone says that to you, you're going to be like, okay, unless of course you have programs in your mind or beliefs in your mind that, he wants something, he's up to something, nobody's that nice. There's another agenda, all the suspicions, all the fears, or really wanting to trust that, but being afraid that we're going to get hurt. There's so much fear that we have. So much, we want to be present, but a lot of times the reason people keep bringing up the past isn't because of the circumstances, but because of that program that's still running in their mind that they developed when they were a little kid. Those little programs that we develop up into year 7, we're just absorbing and downloading all the programs, which means the dysfunctional ones as well, from the people that are raising us around us. And so even when we want to let go of the past, a lot of times our beliefs won't allow us to. So you're offering tools that allow people to just be in the moment instead of getting caught up in those programs. It puts you in control, really.
Yeah. And in a leadership position, if you're with a team member or a group where some or one have those kinds of experiences that are where there's a lack of trust, that's a great awareness for you as a leader. And that requires a level of patience, because this team member is a wonderful person and they're just like you, that at your core. And they just need to learn over time that you are authentic and that you truly care. And through your ongoing performance of showing that you are present and curious and want the best for this person, they will come around, and that ceiling will be broken through, and that trust will be built. And once it's built, wow, amazing things begin to happen.
Yeah, the loyalty, that's a beautiful example. I love that example. So what you're saying, Rob, is that you can't become a mindful leader in an hour?
I don't know if it can happen in a lifetime, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, let's say it can. So we have that new belief, right? And so,
there you go. There you go.
So that we can have a room full of mindful leaders, and an organization that's mindful, and a culture that's mindful, right? It's just full of mind, full of awareness, full of presence, which is great.
I'd like to touch on that belief aspect of what you just said, because one of the things that's worth considering is this idea of humility, in that we are always working with a beginner's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always open to the idea that we aren't as mindful or aren't as great of a leader as we might think we are.
Nice.
And that goes back to something you spoke about earlier, which is essentially always growing, always learning.
Yes.
You know, a thirst for getting just a little bit better today.
Yeah.
And so I think that the belief can be there that I'm on the right path and I'm doing wonderful things. I think that is very important to celebrate that about yourself, but also to keep that openness that I will still grow, and I will grow for myself. I speak for myself in this regard. I will grow until my last breath.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really like that a lot. It keeps our ego in check. You know, I would cringe when I first started doing training because the supervisor would bring me in, the team lead would bring me in, the VP would bring me in, introduce me, and then go outside and have a cigarette. And right away, I knew where the problem was and the opportunity.
That's right. Yeah. Great point.
The idea is I've been doing this for so long, you know, I don't need that stuff. And I'm like, well, there's your first red flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah. I relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. I really like that. So that's kind of funny. My next question is, what are some red flags that let you know leaders need to become more mindful, culture driven? I guess we're in synchronicity right now. So,
well, they leave the room and go smoke the cigarette when they bring the expert in, for starters.
Yeah, that's for sure. So,
you know, I think just building on that, ego is certainly a big part of it. Always wanting to command and control is something that I always think about, where, where I think leadership is lacking when I see that sort of thing. So those would be two things that pop to the top of my mind.
Yeah. You know, there was an old belief for a long time that you can't be friends with your employees or your subordinates, which I never like the word subordinate, you know, and so they're not sub anything, right? Which is why I really love that, you know, when you said just because you're a leader doesn't make you more special than anybody else. You're just as special as everybody else.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We are all on the same playing field together. And all at the same levels. We happen to serve different roles in our organization, and we have different responsibilities that go along with those roles. But it doesn't mean that one's better than the other. I know that there are many roles within my organization, actually, most of them, that I cannot perform at a high level or maybe even an average level. So I am nothing without those around me. And I hope to a certain extent, it's a two-way street, because the whole of us is what makes us unique and special. That's
outstanding. Good job. That was really good. It's very inspiring. You know, that's really mindful leaderness in action. You know, with those kinds of beliefs, you know, it creates compassion and empathy, which a lot of people in corporate America, those aren't words they use. You know, the power, the control, you know, I've had high powered leaders that created multi-million-dollar corporations, and they're like, I'm the money guy. You know, I can't do that soft stuff. You know, I'll have someone else, I'll have HR do that. You know, that's not my thing. I'm the money guy. I make things happen. And, you know, that's where that old belief that, you know, what got you here won't get you there, won't get you to the next level. But people don't want to let go of that because they think it's their mojo. You know, it's what made them successful. It's what made them a millionaire, and they're afraid to evolve and let that go. And what we're saying is that the evolving will make you twice the money. It will make you more productive. Do you believe that mindful leaders can make a ton of money and keep their stakeholders happy?
Of course I do. And it's funny that you asked me that and you led into that, because as you were speaking, you know, I was thinking a bit about what drives you, not you, but a person, you know, in business. And I think we've been wired for a number of years, especially here in the United States, that, you know, that it's about the dollars. And so those that make the dollars are sort of put on a pedestal. And I think making the dollars is wonderful. And I'm a big supporter of making the dollars. Sure. The question is can you do both? And I believe, yes, and I have seen it. I also believe that people beyond the dollars are looking for a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And we all know that once you have the dollars, it makes some things easier. It makes some things more complicated, but it doesn't guarantee a fulfilling life. We know that. Mm-hmm. You've seen that time and time again. You can look at the richest people in our country here in the United States, and you can see how their personal lives are going as we speak right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm not to be judged. I'm not wanting to sound judgmental about that because I'm sure they're wonderful people. I don't know them, but the money doesn't make for everything coming together in perfection. So here's the question. The question is the fulfilling life driving you? And if so, work towards that and find out how all the pieces come together, because you can really be a lifter upper in this world and also make the money that you desire to make, whatever amount that might be.
Yeah, well said. I think that happy employees are engaged employees. Mm-hmm. And when you're engaged, you're making more money. And when you don't feel like you're treated well,
one of the wonderful things that when you say engage that comes to my mind is empowering the team to understand the numbers. Since we're talking about money and we're talking about empowerment, I learned many years ago that no matter what level you are within the organization, if you don't understand how the company makes money, you can't make good decisions that helps the company make more money.
Right. That's right.
You can't connect the dots. Yet, time and time again, depending on the organization, obviously, if you're a public company, you have access to that, but you have to go find it. And most people aren't interested in doing that. But one thing that's really unique these days, and it's getting more common, is teaching financial literacy to your team. Teaching them how to read an income statement and a balance sheet. And hopefully as a leader, you know how to do that. I know many that don't. And they rely on their CFOs or chief financial or their finance people to sort of tell them how it's going. Right. Give me the bottom line, net income, and how much cash do we have?
Right.
But when your team members know how to read the income statement line item by line item, and they know how the balance sheet fits into the whole infrastructure of your business, they start making smarter decisions. Simple things like how much inventory we have, and all of a sudden a light bulb that goes on that says less inventory, more dollars in the bank. So how can we manage inventory better? And let's turn that into a game and make that fun and reduce our inventory. Line item ownership is one of the more simple things that you can look at from an income statement standpoint. Who owns it? Can the warehouse worker own a line item? Absolutely. Why not? 100%. And how will that person feel? She'll feel empowered. Yeah. We had a team member in our warehouse, and she said, I've been looking at our coffee costs, and I think I can reduce it by $50 a month. Okay, $600 a year. You might say, what's the big deal? What's the big deal is that you take one person making a $600 change and you multiply that by the multitudes of people within an organization, it adds up to a few bucks. It can start to become meaningful. Yeah. And this is what's so wonderful about teaching financial literacy and helping empower your team to understand how the business really runs.
Yeah, that's outstanding. So I was with a company, one of my clients for 5 years, and we were doing that. They were becoming transparent, which was something that they had never done before. And everybody was really nervous about it. But we decided that we were going to treat people like adults and not like children. And so we were telling them, and exactly how you said, we were being transparent. We were learning things like, what does EBITDA mean? And what is a margin? And we were learning all these, what's a KPI, and and how do all these factors fit together, and then exactly what you said happened. If it was a tough time, or there wasn't going to be bonuses, or there was something where we needed to hit a certain marker, everybody was invested because they understood what was happening. It wasn't that leadership was just doing things and they only knew what was going on and nobody else ever knew. And so of course, then everybody makes up their own story. And now you got 20 different versions of what's really happening, and
yes,
creates all the silos and conflict and stress that's not necessary.
Yes.
And so we became transparent and we started sharing. And just like what you said, people in every department were coming up with ideas for how they could save money or how they could come up with new money in there. That's what innovation is, right? And so all this new innovation was happening and it was exciting. And in that 5 years, we went from 75 million to 135. That was like, we almost doubled our revenue by, building a culture. And the president, Troy, at the end of the 5 years, I said, what do you attribute this to? And he said, to the work that we did building our culture. It was all about the culture. I mean, sales is sales, yep. Right? That's
right.
And so it was really amazing. And so I love what you're promoting here. Mm-hmm. Educating people, empowering people, bringing them into the loop instead of keeping them in the dark.
And that, first of all, I love that story, and kudos to Troy, for putting it out there. Yeah. And there are a few things that I think about when you share that story. The first is getting started. I had one of my mentors that I mentioned, Jack Stack, many, many years ago. He said, people are afraid to open the books because, especially if it's an entrepreneurial company, the entrepreneur is oftentimes worried that the team will see how much the company is making. That's and right. Then have some resentment around it. That's right. And, but usually the company isn't making as much as the team probably thinks. Mm-hmm. Yet, so the entrepreneur is concerned from that standpoint. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is the company isn't making much money, and the entrepreneur, the leader of the company, is concerned that will concern other people, and maybe they'll start leaving. Yeah. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, okay. So, but here's the way it actually works. When you open the book and you're doing well, that just, for the team members, they already think you're they already think you make multi-millions of dollars every year. So they already think that. Actually, they're surprised that it's not more, is what ends up happening. If you're not doing well, what ends up happening is they don't like to lose. People don't like to lose. Mm. So they want to know, how can I help? Yeah. What do we need to do here?
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it. Yeah. And so then they rally together, but you have to give them the tools. You have to empower them, or else they can't help you. And that's when they want to jump ship, because they feel like they're in the dark and you're just saying, here's where things are. And, we're working on it. That doesn't work. They have to be part of the solution. That's how they buy in.
Oh my gosh. That's great. You said that. Troy's tagline was, you have to be an active part of the solution. If you're not actively a part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
That's right. Troy.
Yeah. Troy Hanna, he's one of my
Troy
heroes.
Hanna.
Yeah, he's an extraordinary leader, and I learned so much from him. Because when I went into corporate America, I didn't know anything about corporate America. I mean, I worked at Radio Shack for a summer, but I was an entrepreneur. I knew a lot about human behavior, and I was scared to go work with a company until I realized that it's just buildings full of people. And I'm like, oh, well, I can do that. And so, yeah. So Troy was one of my very first leaders that was really into taking care of his people. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. All right. Him and his right arm, Carrie Lafke, she brought me into the world of human resources and helped me understand what it was like. Because there's different kinds of human resource, people, and half of them are scared and timid, and the other half are true visionaries.
That's right.
So, yeah, Carrie was a visionary.
So true.
Yeah. So what's the culture like at ImageOne then?
Well, we're a collaborative culture, and sometimes that can take more time. But as Troy, mentions, and I paraphrase, and as I mentioned in my own way, we have to be part of the solutions and to buy into the solutions. So we bring a lot of people, and we listen deeply to what people are thinking and what they're saying. Mm-hmm. When you have people like we do, for example, out in the field, and they're customer facing, they have a perspective on things that is extremely valuable. And you have people who are non-customer facing, and they have a very interesting take on things as well. So it's really beautiful to bring all those together and see what bubbles up into what's most important, and doing that as a team. So it's a collaborative group that we have. The other thing that's important for us that you mentioned at the outset is to lead with genuine care with everyone, every day, every time. And that means everyone of us with everyone around us, which doesn't just mean us on the team. It's how we go about our lives. Yeah. That is the purpose. It goes beyond ImageOne and the successes and challenges that we face together. It's about us going out into society and having meaningful lives and being lifter-uppers in this life, not dragger-downers. And sometimes it's the simple things that smile to the barista at the coffee shop, the simple thing at the grocery store where you let somebody go ahead of you, even though you're in a big rush. It's all those little things that we all know. And I know your head is shaking because you so relate to it, yes, that are such difference makers as we go about our lives. Yeah. And that's what we want our beliefs to be. We want to ingrain that into our minds so it just comes naturally. And so when we face challenges, we're always going back to, especially when they're people related, how can we lead with genuine care through this right now? Now, here's an example of how we might go about something like that. We have a program called Mindful Transitions. And we started this because, the old-fashioned way, in our opinion, that businesses go about things is there's an employer and an employee relationship. And usually the employer kind of feels like they have the upper hand because they're providing the employee with a job and then paying them for that job. Yes. And sometimes the employer does not like the way the employee is doing the job, so they terminate that person. Conversely, sometimes the employee does not like the way the employer is treating them, so they terminate that relationship. And usually, oftentimes it's abrupt. The 2-week notice is a good way of thinking about it. But the 2-week notice isn't really relevant to me anymore. It makes no sense. All you do, it's not a human way of going about things. What you do is you put the entire team, if the employee goes to the employer and gives a 2-week notice, the entire team is stressed and stretched because of that. Same thing on the other side of it. If the employer terminates an employee, assuming that, they didn't do anything illegal or, it needed to be abrupt, that person is going to be stretched and has stress. So why can't you work together and have an open, honest, and vulnerable conversation with each other? Let's say an employee just goes to the employer and says, I'm not sure about this role anymore. I think I want to move on to something bigger and better for my career. I want to learn some new things. And I see it outside of ImageOne. I see it in different places. And I'd like to explore that. What would it be like if the employer said, how can I help you? How much time do you need? We'll give you as much time as you want. How can we make this a mutually beneficial situation? Yeah. So I think you get where I'm going with it all. And that's a mindful transition. That means both parties, no matter which one is the initiator, is turning this into a process that you work on together. And it's that leads a little bit back into how we are around our place at ImageOne. That's our goal, is that we have people who feel safe and are able to be vulnerable with whatever's happening in their lives, and that we can do the same with them. Yeah. It builds trust. That's that right. Psychological safety. It just builds trust. It allows people to be honest. Yeah. The dishonesty and holding back because you're afraid of getting trouble or there's going to be consequences. That is what sabotages relationships and productivity every single time. That's what leads to high turnover and churn. That's right. Yes, I love it. Mindful transitions. At Troy's company, we call them PIPs,
PIP. It's a progress improvement plan, and we would put together a PIP, and lots of people, leaders were on PIPs, employees were on PIPs, because it was all like trying to get feedback, every experience that we have ever created for them. And I created hundreds of experiences for them over 5 years. And every one was just to keep the honest conversation going.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So that we could keep the people that are going to be the best for us, and then move people onto other positions if it wasn't a fit, but with integrity, like true, let's find you a spot or a company that you can actually, thrive in, if it's not a fit for our culture.
Right. And, it's especially relevant right now. Not sure when this will air, but as we sit here at this moment, people like never before, employees have been looking at new opportunities. There's a lot of movement in a lot of turnover happening right now. There's great opportunities for people now, and they're curious, and many are working at home, and it's easy to sort of, maybe test the waters a little. That's right. And conversely, employers, those same people that are looking, there's some really amazing people out there. Mm-hmm. And, but being able to use the PIP or the mindful transitions, I think is a really special tool that enhances that trust. As you said, we don't want to have any cracks in our foundations, because, that's where the flywheel starts to slow down, and you're not moving forward with things in a healthy kind of way.
Yeah. Wow. So, all right. So how did you come up? That's great. How did you come up with the providing genuine care to everyone, every day, every time? I love the idea of random acts of kindness, but being intentional about it. Yeah. So it's not as random. You're just looking for opportunities to be a lifter upper. I love that.
We were just collaborating on our purpose. And those were the kinds of words that were coming out. Being genuine was something that just kept coming up. We just would always say, we just love people who are genuine, real people, because we're real people. They're real people. And we all love being around real people. I mean, we've been at a party, and, you might meet somebody, and they just, there seems like there's a little bit of a wall up or something. It doesn't feel real. But when you meet a real, authentic person, a genuine person, you know it. And so we thought about that. And then we thought about just, how we show up each and every day, each one of us, and what's important to us. And, could we put it out there to say, we need to do this with everyone, every day, every time, and that's possible. It's a mind shift, because you get rattled. Things happen in the world. Things happen in your life. Dramas start to come about, and it's usually all up in the mind. And certainly as we go through these challenging times, there's all kinds of emotions and that go on. But when you can practice showing up with genuine care with everyone, every day, every time, and you have that at the forefront of your mind, it starts to become natural. And it's not that you don't see the suffering in the world. I mean, that's a real thing, and it's never going to go away. But you have a different way of approaching it. Yeah. And so that's what kind of got that whole purpose to bubble up for us. And, that's just the wordsmithing that came around, the words that just really seem to resonate with us. Yeah. So many thoughts. So let me try to get them all out. So, a lot of companies, your philosophy is what allowed them to build a culture where when I would first be brought in, people would say like, well, people keep going home and complaining about us on Facebook, and we feel like we have to terminate all our employees because they're going on social media and complaining about my boss did this and this company, and all that stuff. And so when they started creating the mission and the values and the purpose and allowing people to help them create it, because I believe that people support what they co-create. Right. And I know you believe that too. Then all of a sudden people were like, we were able to resolve this stuff. And now we're on social media talking about how amazing our culture is, how amazing this company is, and how it makes you want to live the values outside the company. If somebody ever said, and I met some people that said, well, I'm going to live the values here, but I ain't doing that stuff when I go home. They probably weren't a fit for the company. Right. Yeah. Cause you got to be genuine, as you say. So how do you keep that front in mind then for people? How do you keep it in there? It's a great question. And it's a simple answer which is difficult to execute on for most. And that is consistent communication.
Yes.
It never ends and it never will.
Never.
And it's in every touch point that we have with our team members, our customers, our stakeholders, our vendors, everybody. We're always talking about some aspect, whether it be our values, our purpose, our vision. It's all always being communicated. And, ways that we do it that will resonate with most are things like just in one-on-one meetings, calling out where you see values being exuded, weekly meetings, departmental meetings, same thing, company meetings, having everybody revisit and read and really understand the vision at its core, like feel it, close your eyes and see it. Don't just read it, like feel it. I don't care if you have it memorized or not. I could care less about that. Like, give me the gist of it. And what does it feel like when you're there? That's what we're looking for. And that's what we're trying to communicate regularly, these rhythms that we have where it's just constant. We send out videos, we're typing, email, whatever it is, when we have the opportunity to communicate some aspect of it, we're out there doing it. And I say to the leaders, it's actually part of your job. It's part of your role. And I'm looking for the eye rolls. And that's where I've said it so many times that the team go, again? And I'm like, yes, again, you heard it. You've heard it so many times. You get it. It's like, I don't need to hear it anymore because I've heard it enough. And that's great. I love that.
That's awesome. I love the passion that you have that comes out, the congruency of it all, looking for the eye roll. I love that all. So yeah. And you've done a spectacular job. Everybody should check out ImageOne, your website.
Thank you.
Is it ImageOne.com?
It's ImageOneWay.com.
ImageOneWay.com.
Yes.
Check out their website. It's just fantastic. The videos that you put together, they're just so good. When we first met, that was the first thing. I'm like, your website is amazing, right? Because it's so, and you can tell everybody's happy and smiling and they mean it. They're not being forced because someone threw a camera in front of them.
Say the right thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I do appreciate that. I really do. And it's humbling actually when something like that comes together, whether it be on a video or, it's things that the public never sees. I'd love to share an example if that's okay.
Of course.
When COVID came, when COVID was at the outset in March of 2020, like so many companies, trying to figure out what in the world was about to happen and having to bring the team on a video, a Zoom call, and, talk about what the potential impacts might be. Thank goodness they understood the numbers, so we didn't have to spend any time bringing them up to speed or teaching them anything. So that was a positive, but it felt very down. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of confusion in our industry when people are not in their offices, which many places they're still not. Our sales are down. And so it's been a very, concerning time for us in the sense of, the core business. But at the end of the call, it was kind of quiet. At the end of the Zoom, it was kind of quiet. And then all of a sudden, somebody out of the blue just started talking and saying, you guys, this is why we have the culture we have. This is it. He gave motivational speech. And then everybody was giving these different motivational speeches, people you never would imagine in the organization.
Right.
And that I cried after we hung up and I got down on my knees. I just started crying because I realized at that time that the work that we've done to build the foundation was very strong. Yes. And it wasn't incumbent on me or the other leadership team members to send this message of we're going to be okay. In fact, those at other, quote unquote levels of the organization that weren't in, quote unquote leadership roles were the ones that were lifting everybody up. Yes. And it was an inspiring thing. And so when you put in the work, over time, you'll have that foundation for these challenging times that will come. This is just one of them. There'll be more different kinds, but there'll be more. And when you have that foundation like that, that's when you shine.
I got chills. I got chills. I got the goosebumps.
That's
oh
so
my
funny.
gosh. What an awesome story. Wow. I mean, that's why you do this. That's why you build the culture, right? And then when you need it, it's there for you, and it is humbling.
That's
and
right.
It just makes you feel like you're not just, you're not just growing a business, you're growing people.
That's right.
You're growing a family, and you're making a generational impact, because happy people go home and they're happier parents.
That's right.
They pour into their kids, and they pour into their neighbors, and they pour into their communities. And so you're making a generational impact.
It all flows out. It's a virtuous cycle is what we call it. It just all flows around, it goes everywhere. Nice. And if you have 1,000 employees, then you're going to touch 10,000 people.
Yeah.
With a happy team member, that person's they're going to touch 10 people.
Wow. Because that was just so inspiring. It was really, really good. And I know sometimes people are going to be like, well, this sounds amazing. Where do I start? Where do I start? If I'm gotten high turnover right now, or I know we need to create a mission statement, or I know we need to redo our values. I mean, where in the world do I start? And I think you've basically said by just being present and setting a new intention.
That's right. And it's overwhelming. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. But where you start is with one thing.
Yeah.
That's where you start. Yeah. And you understand that this is a journey that you will be on for the rest of your career. Mm-hmm. So you start with one thing, and then there's two, and then there's three. You all get it. And that multitude's over time.
Yes.
It isn't built in a day. You stay softly disciplined, not hard disciplined, soft. It's soft discipline. Don't be so hard on yourself. Like you must be rigid and go and do it this. Come in and show up and be a wonderful, genuine person each and every day. And then take the tools that are available to you and keep building on that foundation brick by brick. And over some number of years, you're going to start seeing a shift, but it will take time. And so patience will be critical.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So even with your amazing culture, is there a particular challenge that you might be having right now?
Right now, yeah. All the time. Right now.
That was an honest answer right there, if I ever heard one. Yeah, because that's the truth. No matter how great your culture is, it doesn't mean you suddenly don't have problems.
That's right.
You can just handle them better.
That's exactly right. Business is about problems. There's always problems. It never goes right. Even when it goes right, there's things that aren't going right. But that's all part of the fun. It's all part of how you look at it and your belief system, to use, I think, the way that you present things, Tim. Yeah. And our biggest challenge right now, the biggest thing that we're focused on is obviously, as I mentioned before, I shouldn't say obviously, but with so many organizations who are not fully back in their offices, and will they go back fully, or will there be a new sort of workflow? Yeah. And so for us, it's really a challenge to try to figure it out, but you might not be surprised I'm going to say it this way, but it's actually quite wonderful, because you can stop trying to figure it out, and you can realize that you can only show up and do the best that you can do each and every day. Yeah. Now you pay attention to trends and what's happening, and you shift accordingly, which is exactly what we're doing. Yeah. But the uncertainty certainly brings the challenge. How do you plan for the future? And so that's what we're working through. And we're trying to do the best that we can each and every day to understand how we can best plan for the future.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Very good. Yeah. One of my favorite questions in business is, where's the creative opportunity in this situation?
Yes. Yes.
It might look like a disaster, but
that's right.
There's an opportunity.
Whenever there's a challenge like this, you have to say that, Tim. That is the best advice. You have to, at the outset of this, we got together and we said, okay, Innovation Lab, come together. Yeah. All of us, from wherever you are in the company. Whatever your role is, let's mix and match everybody and break out. And what can we do? How can we use this as a great opportunity to pivot or shift or have a new product line or whatever the case might be? And we did some very successful things last year. We also failed at some things, which is great success. trying and failing is wonderful.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
It's just feedback.
That's right.
Quality feedback.
That's right. And you realize when you're trying things, when you're being innovative and you're really passionate about it, that's when the magic starts happening. It's the unknown that brings you to a place of great success.
That's awesome. So last question, Rob, where can people learn more about your leadership retreat and your book?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that.
Absolutely.
The website is DoNothingBook.com, and you can find everything that you need there with the retreat or the podcast or connecting with me. There's some downloads, all kinds of things, all kinds of resources. I'd love to hear from people. So feel free to reach out to me in any way, and we'll definitely respond.
Outstanding. Wow, Rob, this was just mesmerizing. You were mesmerizing. It went even better than I thought. I thought it was going to be awesome. and you have risen to the occasion. So thank you so much for all your great advice.
Pleasure.
Yeah, your amazing experience and the passion that you bring as you talk about it, because that, it shows that you do genuinely believe that, that creating mesmerizing workplace cultures is the new way to work in the 21st century.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you for mesmerizing all of us and for bringing your great work to the world. It's humbling to be with you. I'm so grateful that we got connected and to be able to share this time with you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Wow. Rob Dube, outstanding. Go check out his resources, his book, his leadership retreat. The guy is amazing. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Use what Rob taught you and make your life mesmerizing. Talk to you soon. Hey, it's Tim. You ever wonder why so many talented, hardworking entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with inconsistent self-belief or high stress or procrastination or self-sabotage? Well, the answer may surprise you, and the solution is already inside of you. I've been searching for the answers to this for decades, and I found them, and I put it into a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind, Mental Secrets for Accelerating Success. And because you're a listener, I want to give you a free VIP copy. Head over to PowerMindsetProgram.com. That's PowerMindsetProgram.com and grab your copy today.